African, then I'm sure you'd be avidly following the African Cup of Nations that's currently ongoing at the Ivory Coast in Cote d'Ivoire. And I think the biggest surprise of this tournament was obviously our Bafana Bafana reaching the semi-finals of the tournament after going to the tournament with a lot of negativity surrounding them. People say, they're not as good as the Springboks. They're not going to make the country proud. The last time they won a major title was in 1996, which is coincidentally the African Cup of Nations, which they are in the semi-finals of, which are playing tonight. We're playing against our arch rivals. Well, they don't consider themselves our arch rivals is Nigeria because they think they're so better than us. But I can think of many times where we beat them and gave them a run of their money. But to speak to us about, the AFCON that was, is football journalist Mpomo Atane. Mpo, welcome to Salam Media. I'm pretty sure this has been one of the best AFCONs you've ever seen in your life. I know it is with me.
Look, the early, I still have the early 90s, the late 90s AFCONs where we came second, Benny McCarthy, top goal scorer in Egypt, losing to Egypt. I thought those AFCONs were really, really good. Obviously, there was a period where Bafana wasn't in AFCON, so you kind of just watched it with one eye.
Yeah.
But from an entertainment perspective, I think this one is up there. I think we have a little bit of recency bias, but we have obviously with South Africa going into the semi-finals, it kind of takes you back to the 2000 AFCON where we finished third, also to the 98 AFCON where Benny was lit up the world, lit up Namibia, but then also lit up the continent.
Yeah. I want us to touch, I think what everyone is talking about right now with this AFCON is the fact that the top five of,
Mm.
the continent's best countries when it comes to football are not in the knockout stages. I mean, you have the likes of Morocco, which, we proudly knocked out. You have the likes of Senegal, defending champions, they're out. You have Ghana, another big name in African football, out. Egypt, with all the big names, Mohamed Salah, that they have, also out. What was it with this particular tournament that it just seemed like the big names, the people that we expected to light up the tournament, just didn't come to the party? Is it them, maybe lagging and not putting as much effort, or is it maybe what you'd consider the smaller countries finally catching up with what was always considered the big dogs of football in Africa?
But remember, that's what AFCON's always been. AFCON's always been a place where giants get slayed. And essentially, that's what this tournament is just reproducing. I think AFCON is one of the best tournaments we have in the world after the FIFA World Cup. And one of the key things,
Europeans would have something to say about that.
no, guys, because the thing is, where throughout the history of AFCON, the smaller nations have always had a chance.
Mm,
You've watched DR Congo's rise this year, but even in the previous year, Senegal came into last World Cup, last AFCON, thinking that they weren't going to do much. They got far. In that on the road, Ghana was put aside. Ivory Coast was put aside. Nigeria couldn't do it. Right? Nigeria have struggled to get far in AFCON previously, largely because of what happened. So to Egypt recently, they haven't won an AFCON since 2000. So this tournament has always been one where giant slayers get beaten. Remember the Ivory Coast teams from the late 2010s all the way through to 2015 when they finally won it. And so essentially, that's what this tournament is about. It's about everyone has a chance in Africa. And
mm,
that's what I love about it. Like even a team like if you think of how well Angola did, right, and how well Namibia did, and you think about Equatorial Guinea and Cape Verde, it's not because they are smaller nations. It's just because when it comes to AFCON, it feels even. It
mm.
feels like it's an even playing field, which is the most beautiful thing about this tournament. And that's why even in the next one, you might see the four that are here might not even make it into the final four in the next AFCON because that's what it is. There's no domination by one nation because of the nature of the African game, and that's what I love about it.
Mm. I want us to focus a bit on Bafana Bafana right now. I mean, what's so different about this team? I think so many times we've went to the AFCON with what you'd consider, big players that were playing in the English Premier League, that were playing in France. And, we thought this was it. I mean, there was a point where you had the likes of, Tulane Serrero was playing the Champions League, regularly, who was in a Bafana team going into the AFCON, and they'll bow out in the group stages, or they would maybe reach the round of 16, and that was the highest they could go.
Mm.
But with this one, predominantly local players that are playing. I think we are the only country at this AFCON where 100% of our players are born and raised in South Africa. Is that maybe the secret that we're going with? That has pushed us so far. The fact that I don't want to mention the team because my allegiance are with the Buccaneers.
And
But is it the secret? The fact that we have so many players playing for that one particular club based in Pretoria that we are seeing this success.
look, I think it is. It's all about cohesion, similar to how Cape Verde have done quite well. It is largely because of the players that have played with each other for a very long time. Teams like Nigeria, Ivory Coast have so many players in the diaspora in Europe that every tournament there'll always be new people and new combinations that need to be set up. Whereas the easier job for Hugo Bruce was there's a team that's been dominating African football that is Mamelodi Sundowns, and you've got 8 players in your starting lineup. So you get that cohesion, you get that knowledge, you get those little 1-2 touches, and it's helped him. What I can say to you is it'll be interesting to see if we win this one because Bafana have only been successful having a lot of players playing in Europe. And that is something we can't take away and we shouldn't necessarily write off. Our players do need to apply their trade in Europe like all the other African teams. It's just for this AFCON, and that's the beauty of AFCON, is that a lot of the teams that have guys who played with each other for years are the ones that are pushing through. The DR Congo team has been playing with each other for years. They've been playing in different clubs around the world, but this team has been built over the last 5-6 years. No changes, not a lot of stuff. The only team, and if you look at the Ivory Coast team, that's seen a few changes over the years. Nigeria as well. This isn't the same team that played at the last AFCON or even in the last qualifiers for the World Cup. So you find yourself with the bigger nations in Africa having to chop and change players, where South Africa have found a sweet spot of about 11 to 15 players who are good enough on the continent to cause drama. And that's what they were going for. Remember, they didn't take the American-based players in Hlongwane, in Jabula Blom, and Cassius Malula because the season had ended in September, October, and hadn't played football in a long time. And Hugo Bruce was looking for guys who were match fit, who are playing regularly for their clubs. And to a certain extent, that's where Bafana's secret sauce is that cohesion. If you break that Sundowns 8, you find yourself in a little bit of a situation where guys don't necessarily understand each other. And you can add Percy Tau as a 9 because he's a former Sundowns player. So that system kind of works for them. So it's the cohesion that's been helping Bafana a lot. And to a certain extent, that's the same cohesion we've had in the 96, 98, and 2000. Similar squads, not a lot of changes. Everybody understood what the other person on the left or the right could do. And that's where we are right now. And I think it might help us in this game because when you look at Nigeria, everyone's coming in together just for this month. And a lot of the people were born outside, elsewhere. And as you say, it can be something that can take us to the title.
A lot has been said about our style of play coming to this tournament. We haven't really seen a dominance aside from that Namibia game where we won 4-0. But out and out, I don't think we've ever seen a game where we've dominated. We've seen the real style of play that South Africans are used to, the quick passes, the 1-2s. It's always been sitting back, transition. Is this something that's going to continue working for us, especially with the Nigerian team that's very, very aggressive? They have a Victor Osman who's I'm not sure if he's fit to play, but if he does play, he's going to pose a threat that most teams that we played against didn't have, where we just sit back, contain. But with this one, it seems like it might be maybe us trying a different strategy where we can start on the front foot, or do we maintain the same strategy? If it's not broken, don't fix it, sit back, absorb pressure, catch on a break. Do you see this working against the Nigerians?
I think it will. I think they'll come at us. I think they'll believe they're a better side and they'll come at us. The only issue with this game, I'll tell you, is going to be won or lost is on the wings. Ademola Lookman versus Kulisa Mudau, Moses Simon versus Obi Mudiba. The thing about them is that South Africa also play a similar game with high wings. Our fullbacks will try to maraud up, which is going to force Nigeria back a little bit. So that's where the battle is going to be. I'm not worried with the style of play. I think the style of play hasn't changed much. The only difference is that up front, they haven't been able to get a lot of joy because as you go into the tournament, teams have become a lot more defensive and better defensively. And the game against Mali, those first 45 minutes against Mali, was probably the most open and best version of Bafana football that you'd want because
Mm.
they were on the front foot. They played really, really well. They moved the ball out wide. Mudau was able to go into the box, bring crosses, and same too with Mudiba. Percy Tau was playing with pace. Mshishi was able to come into the half spaces, and that was our best football. After that, it didn't work out as we'd like, but defensively was strong, and that's what wins you championships more than everything else. And we've been able to score goals on the break, on the transition, and actually put teams away. The thing about tonight is I think it might be a little bit open because I do think Nigeria will want to try and assert their dominance, but they also are the second best defensive team in they are the best defensive team in the tournament again after and we're second. So they are uncharacteristic to what they normally were, whereas previously they were just a very strong attacking side, and this time they're very pragmatic and they're quite defensive. So I think that's what's going to happen. The trick for me is you just need to move the ball a little bit quicker. So in the transition, I'm okay with you absorbing pressure, but in the transition, you need to move the ball a little bit quicker through the lines, and that's going to be important with Zwane. Where Zwane's positioning is, he's been a lot deeper recently. He needs to be a little bit higher,
Mm.
and not necessarily try come in and help Mokwena and Sitole in the midfield. I don't think we're going to get that pressure from the center like we did against Cape Verde or even against Morocco. We're going to get pressure on the sides. So if you can push Tembazwane onto the one flank and try and either double up or overload one side whenever you get the ball, that's going to give us something. The passes and the touches haven't been happening as much as you'd have loved, like it was in the first half at Mali. Those will come. It's a rhythm thing. The team will get themselves back in. But I think from my perspective is if we concede early,
Mm.
it kind of will put us on the back foot, and that's essentially what this team doesn't do. They don't concede early. They always find themselves into the game. They always the team that scores first. So that's what they need to go and look to. I think Evidence Mahopa is going to be a problem for the Nigerian centre backs, and Percy Tau can also cause problems. And for me, this game is going to be on how dynamic Percy and Tembazwane are. We can see their age; they're playing towards their
Yeah.
age, right? They look a lot older, but you need that, especially with Tapela Maseko not being able to come on because he's injured. So we might see a bit of a different flavor. It may be an Ikram Rainers or Denver Apollos might come in to kind of give us something different, but. Or even a Mayambela, for instance. So we've got options. You just want to take the game deep, and hopefully everything else will sort it out. I think both teams are evenly matched, even though on paper Nigeria looks like they're a better side.
Yeah, speaking of Nigeria, their goalkeeper Stanley Nwabali plays in the PSL here in South Africa. Plays for Chippa United,
Mm.
not a top five team. Do you think psychologically that could play as an advantage for Mamelodi Sundowns players that would think this guy will score week in week out against them back home? He shouldn't be a problem. But looking at his performances, he's been second, well, from a South African perspective, to Ronan Williams when it comes to
Yeah.
being the goalkeeper of the tournament. But he's playing with a group of players that know him very well, maybe knowing the team that he plays for. Do you think that's going to play a part in any way, or it's just 11 against 11 and it doesn't matter who comes where?
What I can tell you is that the way he's played in this tournament shows that he deserves a move away from Chipa. He's playing. He's probably. I haven't seen Nigeria with a good enough goalkeeper since Vincent Nyema, and
Yeah.
Stanley Nobali is right up there. And he's done everything well. He's kept them in games. He's made the same amount of saves as Ronald Williams. That's 12, and he's just proving to everybody that he if not Sundowns next year calling him up from cheaper, it will probably be one of the other Soweto Giants that will be calling him up because they need goalkeepers, and he is a phenomenal. He's been phenomenal this tournament. One of the key reasons why they're the best defense in the tournament.
Looking at Nigeria again, Victor Osimhen, the Napoli man, hasn't really fired on all cylinders in the Italian league. I think also coming into the AFCON started a bit slow. I think he has one goal, but he's always the threat off the ball. With how he bosses around defenders. Is he 100%? I mean, we've heard that he might not be fit to play. Is he a threat to keep in mind, or we can go into this one thinking, maybe we can push a bit up. We know that the Grankikan and Vala can do that. Or do you hold that low block and hope to catch them as or on the break, as it were?
Well, look, I'm not never a fan of the low block, so I hope they don't hold
We've
that.
been playing the low block.
It hasn't been a lowish block. It's been a very fluid mid block. I've been watching that 18-yard area on some. Don't
Yeah.
go there. Don't go back. But look, Victor Osimhen's had a really tough year. African Football of the Year, but in Naples, everything has turned.
Mm,
Everything has changed from last season. They fired their coach. It's not the season like they used to be. He has been at the center of a lot of controversy in Naples. And it's kind of come through for him and the Nigerian national team because even for them, he hasn't been off. Remember, before this AFCON, we've had World Cup qualifiers with South Africa and Nigeria are in the same group as well,
yeah.
right? And they lost to Lesotho. They drew to Lesotho. They drew to to another team, and they haven't actually won in the two games. South Africa won one and drawn one, right? It was Rwanda. They lost the Rwanda game, but essentially, this Nigerian side isn't firing all cylinders because Victor Osimhen, the guy they're looking towards, isn't there. And from an injury perspective, just to give you an update, he is fit. He is with the team. He did stay in Abidjan for a little bit longer before the team went. The rest of the team went to Bouake. He stayed. And then they made a call yesterday morning that he was fit enough to go. So he was training with the team yesterday. So he will start tonight against Bafana Bafana. It's going to be interesting to see what type of Victor Osimhen we're going to get
Mm,
because normally when you're playing with the niggle, it will affect you. And the question obviously is how will Kikana and Mvala be able to manage it? They'll probably boss him around. They'll probably share him between the two of them.
yeah.
Osimhen's job is to stay in between the two of them to cause problems, even come as deep as possible to try to collect the ball to see if you can't draw one of them out and give space for Simon and Adamola Lukman behind Bafana Bafana. But it's going to be great. It's going to be. I think it's going to be. That's the contest to watch. It's Vala and Osimhen and see how that's going to work out. On the other side, it will be Franco Nyeka and Temba Zwane who will be trying to figure out who's going to be winning those balls in the midfield. Obviously,
Mm.
Tebo Khomokwena is there as well, so that's going to be quite a great tussle. But yeah, obviously the Nigerians want Osimhen to score. I don't want him to score now. He can score in the third. We need to go through because we've got Nigeria later this year in the World Cup qualifiers to see who's
Yeah.
going to go to America. We need a good win. We haven't beaten them in AFCON before, but we've beaten them outside of AFCON, and we've
Mm.
beaten them recently outside of AFCON. So even in Nigeria. So for me, if you can remember Tukola Ranti's wonder strike
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
strip, that's the rain.
Yeah.
That's that. Those are the memories South Africans need to invoke. You
Yeah.
know that
Speaking
we can
speaking
and
on
we can do.
speaking on Victor Osman, on the other side you have Pesitao, Africa-based Player of the Year, from the previous season. A lot of people are saying he owes South Africans that exceptional performance that we've always been looking for. The performances that he always puts out for his Al Ahly side in Egypt. Uh, what's wrong with Pesitao? Is age catching up? Is he played in the right position? Because we haven't seen really the Pesitao of all that he's the guy to get you out of trouble. When the sticks are down, but he hasn't really come to the party as much as we expected him to be coming into this tournament.
I think teams have been putting a marker on Percy Dow throughout the tournament. He hasn't been able to be free to get the ball to do the magic that we know he does. When you give him space, he can punish you, right? And to a certain extent, also he's trying to be as pragmatic, playing in the system that Hugo Bruce wants him to play, to be not to not be as aggressive as Al Ahly want him to be, or previously Mamelodi Sundowns wants him to be.
Mm.
Essentially, the way I think Bafana Win plays this game is a very pragmatic on the counter, looking for opportunities to run behind teams, not at them. Percy's good at running at teams with people moving around him. And the issue is that our defenders haven't been able to get around on the back to give him that second pass, that little 1-2 touch. He obviously has been able to play with Tembazwane, but half the time Tembazwane and him have been so far apart on the field, and you want them to kind of narrow the gap a little bit more and allow the fullbacks to come through on the wings to kind of press them in onto the 18-yard area and have them play. It will happen. It will come. We saw that in Mali, that he had a little bit more space. And he played really well in that first half, even though he did miss the penalty. It will come. It's just all a patience game. And the issue obviously is he'll always be man marked. He'll always be doubled because he is Percy Tau, right? Same thing with Tembazwane, right? And the issue is that they can't bring who else can come up and step up out of that front five who can do the job and help punish teams. Because, for instance, I'll tell you now, Nigeria is not going to allow Percy Tau and Tembazwane to beat them. But if Tapelo Morena steps up, if Evidence Mahopa steps up, if Tebogo Mokoena steps up and beats them, then there's nothing else that they can do. And that's what they're asking South Africa to do right now, is can you win left-handed with Percy marked and with Tembazwane marked? And essentially, it's up to the other guys to step up. And I think we've got the guys who can. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to look.
You know, a lot has been said about, you know, the support for Bafana Bafana coming into this tournament. Obviously comparing them to, you know, the rugby world champions, the Springboks. Do you think, to a certain extent, South Africans have let Bafana Bafana down in terms of how, you know, we went about supporting the national team? You know, we see other African countries, you know, before the tournament even started, you know, some of them are even in Ivory Coast. But us, I think it took Bafana Bafana making out of the round of 16 when, you know, people started, you know, giving them attention and say, you know, we're going to throw our weight behind the boys. Is it the case? And, you know, to football teams, national teams, does it really matter, you know, to kind of see that, you know, your nation is a bit apprehensive when it comes, you know, throwing their weight behind you?
I think what this team knows, and I spoke with Coach Hellman before he left the country, and he knows that they need to win to get the support of the nation again. But I do believe that the South African Football Association has let Bafana Bafana down, to a certain extent, Banyana Banyana too, in not getting them the requisite support and sponsorship that they need. Not necessarily sponsorship in terms of money, but support and sponsorship in terms of actual support, right? Creating Bafana Bafana Fridays, creating initiatives like Bafana Wednesdays because we're playing today, and things like that, and trying to get the nation behind thing. And they have let the team down in that. From a player's perspective, they know that winning is the best way to get yourselves back into the good books. And we're a nation of winners. We've seen that since the Springboks lifted the World Cup. Everyone's been beating New Zealand. Things we are winning court cases around the world.
They don't know what we know.
Exactly, you know, and we're a nation of winners, and Bafana Bafana know that. And I'll tell you now, Silalo, this team knows their end goal is the tournament. Hugo Bruce has only lost one game at an AFCON, and that was the game against Mali. The man's been to two AFCONs. He's won it with Cameroon. He knows how to win it. He believes he can win it. That team that's there believes that they can do it. They knew that this road was going to be hard. And I honestly think their hardest game was Cape Verde. I think you'll see them a little bit more freer against Nigeria, because Nigeria is going to think that they can take us on. When a team believes they can take us on, we will do that. Similar to that second half against Morocco, when Morocco started putting the pressure on us, thinking that they needed to get a goal, we then came back, counterattack, and scored. That's how we played. Verde was slightly different because they wanted to defend as much as possible, and they weren't willing to play in the right spaces. So it was just a midfield battle. Today, I know they will come at us. They think that they can beat us. They think that they're the big brother to South Africa. Today, the small brother is actually going to be the one that's going to beat them.
And quickly before I let you go, I know your blood is green and gold, but your predictions? And does it finish in the 90?
Like I said, it's the World Cup final. France can't allow Argentina to go to penalties because there's that bad man, Martinez. Yeah. We've also got a bad man in Ronald Williams. I hope it doesn't go to penalties. I do think that South Africa will come out 2-1 winners today. I do think Nigeria will equalize. but I do think that they will, in them chasing a winner, afraid of going to penalties, so that will pull it away.
There you have it, Paul Moetlani there. Very interesting conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope we'll chat to you soon when we are preparing for the finals against the hopefully an Ivory Coast. I feel like we'd have a better chance beating the host,
No, we
man. They've
want we
been
want
looking shaky.
DRC. We want Congo. We want to subdue the crowd. We don't want a hostile
Yeah,
40,000 crowd in Abidjan.
Sundowns players, they see this, throughout, man. In the week, they go to, East Africa, West Africa, North Africa, and they beat everyone. So I don't think there's going
And
to
we've
be a
been there. We
factor.
were there last year, late last year in Ivory Coast, a full
Yeah,
stadium in preparation for AFCON, and we drew
and we
1-1.
beat
We
them.
actually scored
Yes, yes,
first. So,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
So,
So I'm sure we'll catch up with you, but for now, it's goodbye, and thank you so much. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
thank you, Slalo. Cheers.
Cheers. That is Football Channels and Paul Motlani. They're giving us a throw forward, a very detailed throw forward to the semi-final game where South Africa will be playing arch rivals Nigeria. That game is going to be live at 10 p.m. Very big game from both countries' point of view. Both countries seeing themselves as the giants of Africa. I think this one's going to be a major decider. And Nigerians very confident side in South Africa, slowly going about their business. But hopefully, will come out the positive results. As I said with Mpo, there's just something in the water of South Africans these days, just winning everything, around the world. So yeah. Hopefully, we'll be keeping an eye on that. And next time we talk to Mpo, Bafana Bafana will be the champions of Africa. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll be talking to the African Transformation Movement on our Know Your Manifesto segment, where we're speaking to political parties, different political parties, about what they have to offer you, the voter of South Africa, leading up to the 2024 national general elections. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Zaman Chwan from the African Transformation Movement joining us on the Know Your Manifesto segment.